he's in Costa Rica, so I got Margot McGurr instead, so that your tour is represented.
I will take Margaret. I will take her and hug her. Oh my, I'm so dark. This is crazy. Anyway.
Constance just had a show open. Director Woman U. Did the opening go well?
Yes, it went so well. We had an understudy who had to go on very last minute. We ended up having to cancel our preview. The actor who got injured actually was given the pre-show speech and said, "Oh, it's a preview, so if anything goes awry, we'll call hold." And she turned and felt a pop in her leg and had a slight tear in a muscle, and so she couldn't go on. And because so much of her role is, she's got a lot of like movement, and we had to call the fire marshal in to deal with something that she does. So we couldn't just throw her understudy in without really making sure she was caught up. So yeah, so we took some time to get her in there, but man, my only note for her was what understudy. It was really impressive. I mean, no one knew, no one had any clue that this girl was an understudy. She did a fantastic job.
That is the coolest.
Yes.
That is so awesome.
Yes. So I told her, the actor who is now back in, I said, no more chat about anything going awry. You're not allowed to say anything.
We don't need that wording in there.
No, we do not.
Good to see you, boss. Happy to be here.
So happy to have every cheesehead in the state represented by Allison Glenzer.
Oh, yes, indeed. Wisconsin is in the meeting.
Very cool. In West Virginia, where I am now, working with Jason, every Sunday is Superhero Sunday. So
say that again. My dog decided he wanted to talk to you.
Every Sunday is Superhero Sunday, so I have to represent for
yes,
for them.
And Superhero Sunday in West Virginia, is that something I don't know?
Yes,
I mean,
that is something you don't know. No. No.
Jim,
Mary McDermott is on the high seas, and she is
really?
joining us.
Jim, the way you started that and the name of this program today, it's in West Virginia, born and raised on the playground. I spent most of my days. So you should be chilling out Maxon for the rest of this. If you
Wow. Hi, Mary McDermott. What is your exotic port that you are in today?
Oh, you're on mute, Mary.
I am in Cozumel, Mexico. But I am on a jam cruise, so there's music all night. And I'm with a dear friend who's 15 years younger than me. So she's gone off to Cozumel, and I'm joining you people, and it's a much better. I am much wiser. So I am going to mute, and but it's wonderful to see all of you.
Awesome. Well, we may have people that are going to still join us as we go, and I think that maybe we should start with everybody introducing themselves, so that this conversation can be as interactive as possible. And I was thinking maybe name anything about schooling, training, career for actor type. Connection to that guy Jim Warren and maybe Romeo and Juliet. So who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. Hi, guys. I'm Tom Evans. I am Jim's producing partner, one of Jim's producing partners in the American Globe Center. And I actually played Friar Lawrence for him on the Tough Love Tour in 1998. Friar F up, as we called him.
10th anniversary Tough Love Tour.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So we did R&J and Taming that season. And it was an amazing experience, and really sort of was what put the grist to the mill for what we're now trying to create with the American Globe Center. So I'm really excited to have you all here.
Somebody else.
I'm another member of the AGC team. My name is Jason Young, and I'm our current director of outreach and engagement. But Jim mentioned that he's in West Virginia with me right now. That is where I was born and raised, not West Philadelphia, Tom. And I run a group called the Rustic Mechanicals, which is the only paying Shakespeare troupe in the state of West Virginia. A lot of people are surprised that we have one, and we do. And Jim has been with us directing some shows for the last six seasons or so, and we definitely have done at least one. We've done 2 R&Js together, because I've played everything from Mercutio to the Friar for you, and I've played my all-time favorite role in any Shakespeare play, which is the servant Peter. That is my favorite role is in R&J, and I got to do that for the Jim Warren. So,
well, speaking of Peter, I too have played that pivotal role, and that is the only time that I was ever in Romeo and Juliet. And I met Jim when I was on the 1993 tour, and I married him during the 1994 tour. And my name is Margot McGurr, and I worked with Jim for 8 years. I did, 4 tours, and I worked in the office, and now I don't. And I am looking forward to moving to Connecticut and having a Globe and doing something in the arts again, because right now I'm working with legal documents in the corrections field, and that's not nearly as much fun.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is this working with the headphones in? Fantastic. My name is Benjamin Kearns, and I got my first job with Jim in 2001, and I worked off and on with him until 2017. I was in 3 productions of Romeo and Juliet at his company, and I have since been, I don't know, in at least that many outside of his company. I think that's probably, I've played Mercutio twice, and the nurse, and Paris, and Balthazar. So.
And we worked on a production together in New York where I was directing and you were fight directing.
I was a fight director, that's correct. And I worked on one where I directed, and Constance Swain was a badass Benvolio.
Well, there you have it. I was like, how can I was ready to come in right after you because I felt it was only right. Yes,
Constance,
I met Jim Warren. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just so happy to see you. I have the best memories of working with you on 2 shows, and I just think you're fantastic.
I think you're fantastic.
Yes.
I'm very happy to see you here today.
I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see everyone, and Mary from the boats. Yeah, I met Jim back in 2016. Well, no, that's not true. I met you, I guess, in 2014 when you came and auditioned us my first year of grad school. And then I was like, what is this weird place that this guy's coming from? Who is this mythical gnome coming in here? And what is this American Shakespeare Center? It sounds really cool. And then the following year, auditioned and then got an offer for their 2016 tour, where I had the privilege of working with Benjamin Kearns, who directed me. And I was Benvolio and got to do a lot of badass fights, which was one of my favorite parts of being introduced to the ASC. So, yes.
Why don't we go to Allison?
I was just looking for my unmute I thought I was probably a good follow to the wonderful teamwork that Ben and Constance did on that show. I got to see it, and it was just badass. And the fights and the heart of Benvolio, which I think is an worshipped character in the play. I actually was in a production of R&J before I was professionally hired by Jim in 2001 with the Swine Palace and Shakespeare and Company. And Tina Packer directed me in as the nurse with Barry Kyle, sort of co-directing kind of. And I did the nurse with that. And then I was hired at at American Shakespeare Center. And for the tour, which I was Mercutio, which was really great. And then I also, for Jim, played the nurse twice in 2 different shows. And I played the friar for him once. And I played, I guess that's everything. I went back to Shake and Co. and they had me back to do the same sort of thing, but as the nurse. But we traveled to Buffalo Philharmonic and the Buffalo and Philadelphia Philharmonics, and did a co-production with those orchestras with Shakespeare text and scenes and costumes and everything with Shake and Co., where Jan Holt directed that one. But we did it with the music. So Joanne Falletta, who's a really kick-ass orchestra leader, maestro, she was on stage with us orchestrating the whole huge Buffalo Philharmonic. And we came in and did scenes, and some music played under us, and some was fights that was complete music, or certain scenes that were acted out that were complete music, or like my nurse's monologue was completely, the first one about the Dougs was completely underscored. So while I spoke, certain things swelled, and it was a very cool experience. Mercutio was a Mercutio I had worked with before, Tina Packer's son, and he got into a fight. They did a great choreography with her. I believe it's called a baton, the stick with which they use to orchestrate, and him with a knife. It was creative and funny, and she like won, but it was really smart. So I've been in this play a lot. I loved my experiences every time with Jim. They're very, very specific. And then the times that I did it with with Shake and Co. But my dearest to my heart are my Juliets, probably because of being the nurse, and then my being the friar was particularly interesting. And then Mercutio was kind of my first role that I got to really play a fantastic male role, and it was because of the way they did things at American Shakespeare Center.
Well, and Allison was the friar in the same production that Benjamin was the nurse.
Yeah.
That's
Which I love to see you, Ben.
Good to see you too.
Holly?
Hi, I'm
Christy.
Sarah. I'm
Sarah,
Sarah
go ahead.
Fallon. This is my husband, Charles. Jim hired me in 2004. That was my first year at the American Shakespeare Center, and I have worked there off and on ever since. Last year was 20 years, and I was actually on stage there for 20 years off and on, which is pretty crazy. And in all of that time, I have never been in Romeo and Juliet. It is one of my 6 that I have left in the canon to complete. If I ever complete the canon, I don't know if I will, but fingers crossed. And Romeo and Juliet is one that I would like to knock off the list. It's so crazy that it is we just have never crossed paths, seen all of these amazing people do amazing versions of it, and I have not been a part of it yet.
When I saw your face in the little box, I'm going through my mental Rolodex and thinking, I don't think Sarah was in a Romeo. What am I forgetting?
Nope, never done it. I'm here to learn.
I've never been in Romeo and Juliet either, although I did see Ben and Allison's Romeo and Juliet, And it's one of the only times that the nurse and the friar have upstaged Romeo and Juliet. It was a fantastic performance.
Woohoo!
Great to see you both, but it's crazy, Sarah. I can't believe you haven't been like Lady Capulet at least 4 times. Let alone that you should have been in a lot of other roles.
So, Christy, people think your name is Holly.
I know. Oh my gosh, y'all.
Christy.
We had virtual learning because of snow, and I just saw that. So my daughter was using my computer, and I'm like, oh, and I can't say a blasted thing on this computer about where to change my name. So I just texted her. I'm like, can you come up and change my name? Hi, I'm Christy Chambers, and I am so happy to be here. I'm about to cry. I'm literally about to cry. I haven't seen Jim and Margaret, and I saw Kara's name since we had our 10-year reunion, I think, from in 2003, because we were the season of love in 93. I'm going to cry. I love you all so much. Those years performing are so dear to my heart, and playing Juliet, and my beautiful Peter over there, and my Benvolio, and I've loved every minute of it. I went on to do some TV. I felt very blessed. I worked for Aaron Spelling for several years. And I always thought that Aaron Spelling and Shakespeare would be BFFs, to be honest. I really do. He knew how to just engage people and make them laugh, but yet be kind of like bawdy, and titillating was his favorite word. And but yet kept it just fun. So I'm just so happy to be here. So thank you for putting this together.
Kara McLean Burke, can you hear us? Can you see? I can see your picture. You are on mute.
Hi. Fuck. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Hi. I'm putting Benvolio power here. I love it. It's great to see Margaret and Holly and Jim and all you guys whose work I admire so much. So yeah, I was in the 93 season as Benvolio in R&J, and that was my only time with that. And it's great to see you. I had to hear what you guys were up to, and I just wanted to be a part of this. So I'm listening in.
Very cool. Madeline, am I saying your name right?
It's Madeline.
Madeline.
So I'm actually about to cry. I was a camper at the young. It was called the Young Company Theater Camp at the time. So the first show that I saw as a camper was Romeo and Juliet. I was sitting in the front row. It was Allie and Benjamin, and then I grew up watching all of the productions with Sarah and all of them. And I think I just found out about this because Renee posted it. Renee Thornton Jr. posted something about it online. But it changed. I mean, I'm not kidding. It changed my life. And I went on to study. I went to school for theater, and I studied in London, and now I'm out in Los Angeles. I'm here now, and I work as a writer. So it's really, I cannot tell you what a foundational experience that your productions did for me. So it just, yeah, I'm just so happy to be here. I may have to turn my camera off a few times to do some things, but I just am, these truly these people changed my life. So
That is so cool.
I know. I
You grown up so much. I'm sorry, but it's awesome. I love you. You're so talented. I think you're just, it's wonderful to see you.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you, Allie.
Benjamin Reed.
I mean, like that just made me over the moon ecstatic. My name is Benjamin. I came along much later. Never did R&J with Jim, unfortunately, but hoping to one day. But worked at ASC for a very long time with him and with Allison and Sarah, and got to know all these other lovely people during that time there. And I am the founder of stageable.com, So just looking for a sustainable future for the performing arts in the digital era. And Madeline, that's just so cool, and how magical that we can make this connection and that all these people can get to see each other. And it just, that made my entire week. So so thanks everybody for being here. And I just, Allie, I missed you. It's so good to see you. And yeah, I'm just thrilled.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you. That makes my heart feel quite good. Thank you. You too.
Hey, Laura, can you hear us okay?
And I just want to say, Allie, I love you and you look so wonderful. And I'm so, so happy to see you. I'll never forget you
If
doing
people want to see me cry, they'll come see Romeo and Juliet in another universe or another time warp. But I wanted to do the same thing when I saw your face.
I remember you doing the lines required. I do. When we did the 10th anniversary of the Playhouse. And I mean, you guys changed my life in my middle age. What a gift. So thank you. Thank you.
We're all gonna cry on this damn thing.
Well, I'm going to, because I've never been in Romeo and Juliet, and I'm still reeling from the scandalous news that neither has Sarah Fallon. And so I don't know what to say.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Jim. How's it going? I'm not going to cry. I don't know anyone here apart from Tom Evans. But I will echo all these. I also love you all. I wish I would have seen any of these productions. I was probably still living in Anchorage, Alaska, and in high school at the time. So I'm now in Stratford, Connecticut. Stratford upon Housatonic, as I like to think of it. The reason I moved here was because of the name, and then I found out it happened to be a great town. I got connected with Tom Evans, and am still fighting the good fight, trying to get the theater here. We'll talk offline more about that, but was a theater major, did never a production of R&J. Midsummer is actually my fave, no offense to anyone, but was in a couple of productions at Smith College, which was fun because that's an all-women's school. So there were no male cast members anywhere at any time. So yeah, lots of good traditional gender bending Shakespeare, which was awesome. So just here to talk about the Bard and dig in, because it's like one of my favorite things. So yeah, lovely to meet you all and be here today. So thanks, Tom, for sending me the invite. Much appreciated.
Appreciate you.
I've got a whole list of things that we can talk about, but before I get to any of that, is there anything that anybody wants to throw out there from the get-go? Hey, what about this thing in Romeo and Juliet? Now that we got all these people that have been in it, some who haven't, some who've seen it a bunch, some who haven't seen it beyond a whole lot of than the shows that they've been in. Is there anything burning in anybody's brain about, hey, let's talk about this thing? Benjamin is laughing.
Has anyone ever heard, spoken, or seen the second chorus if Jim Warren wasn't directing it? Do you know that there is a second chorus?
Yes.
Some of us had to actually do it. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, and do you remember any of the lines?
I shouldn't say that.
No, I didn't.
I do. Wait, Jane. No, who directed it when I was in Mercutio? She's wonderful. But it wasn't you.
Yes. No,
And
it was
Jane Powell. Yes, and she did the second chorus, but I think it was just because she was with Jim. I even think you said, I would like for you to use the second chorus.
Yes, I did.
It was like, cool. And we moved boxes Like during it, like we choreographed a box movement and not one person did because I was the chorus when I was Mercutio, but we all did the second chorus together and moved stuff. And you came in and watched the rehearsal.
It's a plot update thing. It's a now old Desire doth on his deathbed lie, and young affection keeps me as heir.
Too late.
Yeah.
You know, Jim, I did one production that you didn't direct that did have it in it. He cut a lot of other weird stuff, but that was in.
Well, and cutting is a big deal. I mean, depending on the theater and what they're trying to do, it's always which stuff are we going to leave in and what stuff are we going to cut out. And certainly the second chorus doesn't do anything to move the plot along. Of course, the opening chorus doesn't either. It's a little more famous, so if we decide to cut that, then we're denying some people a bunch of famous lines. When you directed it, Benjamin, at the ASC, did you want to lose it?
Yeah, I cut it.
Gotcha. Well, you did.
I cut it. And you said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "I'm pretty sure."
And I didn't jump up and down and scream or anything?
You didn't. No, not about that.
So I would die now with Tender Juliet matched is now not fair. Yeah, it's all coming back. Good.
I'm interested in tapping into y'all about most of us in the United States have Romeo and Juliet in the freshman year or early on in high school, and so a lot of us encountered it then, and now we're all older. I'm wondering if your views of the play have changed over time as you've either gotten older or because of the roles you've played. Does the play speak to you in different ways now than it did when you first encountered it?
Jim, it's Mary, and I just like to say I was the exact right age for the Olivia Hussey, Leonard Whiting movie. The exact right age. I was like in middle school. And
R.I.P. Olivia.
Yeah, and that I was just decimated by the tragedy of it. But then, as I saw it years later at the ASC, when I had my own two daughters, all I could think of was, oh, those poor parents. Those poor parents. So,
yeah.
I think for me, like the first time that I read or encountered it, I might have been like 13. So it was before I had like my first big teen love, heartbreak, whatever, your first dalliance in romance. And so at 13, I just fell in love with the poetry and the plot turns. And then rereading it after, I'd had my heart broken, I saw it in a different lens of, oh, this is such a tragedy. And I understood them falling hard and fast. And now that I'm older and jaded, I'm just like, these young dummies, like, they're babies. Like Romeo's such a playboy, so it does kind of, depending on what experience you have in that realm, color things differently, to be sure.
I don't think
that Romeo Romeo so bright. I think Juliet had a lot more on. I shared that with Benjamin Reed because he lives in a household of 3 strong women, and
I don't think Jim will be surprised by this, but my introduction to Shakespeare was in high school. I was one of those kids who wore Chuck Taylors and a lot of black. And I carried a copy of Romeo and Juliet around because I wanted people to think I read Shakespeare, but I didn't actually read the book. I just wanted people to think I read Shakespeare. And it really wasn't until I joined the SSE and joined the tour and started acting for Jim that I got to know Shakespeare or even became acquainted with the play. So my entire understanding of the play is from working with my husband. But yeah, so that's how I came to understand the play as a whole, was through his eyes.
I don't think I ever heard that story about it.
Yeah, no, I would carry it around and act like
I love that.
And then how many times you had to carry around things that he had you now memorize?
You know, one of my favorite things ASC used to do, so like everyone else, it was English class where we did popcorn reading, and I thought, oh God, please nobody call on me. No, please. I don't want to read this. And when I first got exposed to Romeo and Juliet from the performance side of things at ASC, one of the things ASC used to do that they don't do so much anymore, and I wish and hope that they bring it back because it was so beneficial as a performer, was paraphrasing. And so to take the time and go through line by line to figure out how would I say this in my own words gave me, as someone who quite frankly didn't, I mean, was a little surprised that I even was at ASC, was like, wait a minute, hold up, I'm not supposed to be here. People who do Shakespeare don't really look like me. And then being in that room where the exercise of, well, how would you put this into your own words? And I remember one of the lines that Benvolio has is tut. And I said, bruh. and Ben Kearns and I went back and forth about it. And he was like, tell me about this bruh word. Because it was at a time where we really combed through the language to have that ownership over it. And the thing that was really so beautiful about doing that kind of work that maybe others could have found tedious or, oh, I don't need to do this, I already know what I'm saying, you know, whatever, was that when you have that ownership, then you take it, especially on tour, for people who, like me, didn't see themselves in Shakespeare and were just sort of at a distance. And then they just heard the words in the way that we meant it, because we had that underscoring of our own interpretations. And we as a company, we as a cast would comb through and say, okay, what is the world we're building? And that was something that I really appreciated about my sort of full exposure to Shakespeare, doing that kind of exercise. And it's something that really I think everyone should do. It's one thing to, you know, to say, I get the idea of what this is, but to go word by word and say, no, tell me what you mean. Make it make sense from your voice, which I think gave everyone their own voice in Shakespeare. And then in turn gave people on the road and those, you know, who would come and see the shows, something they could latch on to, because they said, oh, I may not know what that word means dictionary wise, what Webster says, but I understand the essence because that person does. And now I see myself, or I feel myself in this story. So that was probably one of my biggest light bulb moments with specifically R&J.
Constance, you just put that so beautifully. I'm very glad that someone that has a cool name is taking notes and that this is recorded. I absolutely agree with you 100%. It is something that I think is fundamental to why the words were potent. I do believe that once somebody has picked that word specifically, now you are talking to someone who believes it strongly. I actually really worked hard to make my love's labor lines rhyme. In my own words. I felt like there was something extra about that. And I even have my original paraphrases from the first time I was, I got a job with, when it was SSE still. I still have my original Jakes, my original Mercutio, and my original clown paraphrases. So I think, and I do think in high school, I did have a great gifted teacher that would pause on his butt, you know, when we watched the Zeffirelli movie, you know, but it was always sort of compartmentalized. And I think if kids had to do that exercise, they would actually get charged by figuring out exactly what that word meant and being able to find their words, so that then when they said that word, it would be said with the same kind of thought. I think thank you for saying that out loud in terms of the education and how we help kids create the language, so that's why people say, I didn't think I understood it, but then about 2 minutes in, everything made sense. Thank you.
I think as a non-actor, but somebody who's seen a lot of performances, I don't know if it's absolutely down to paraphrasing, but certainly when I was watching plays where I knew paraphrasing had been part of the process, it seemed to me that the actors seemed to understand what they were talking about. I've seen a lot of plays recently where I also know that paraphrasing hasn't taken part in the rehearsing. And it seems like there's a lot of parroting, but there's also a lot of misunderstanding as to what the language might be. And that affects the performance of the play. If the actor themselves don't understand what they're saying, how can they possibly be putting the play forward in the best light as William Shakespeare wanted it to be? So I don't know if paraphrasing is the answer to that, but Constance, I also agree with you. I think paraphrasing is something that should be essential for everybody who's doing Shakespeare.
Spoken by an Englishman.
No, I'm sorry, Mary, but I am now an American.
He is an American
Right.
citizen now.
Oh, you have my sympathy. It's so, yeah.
Since November.
Just is there a more oft misquoted line than "Wherefore art thou Romeo?" with people thinking that the word is where, right? I agree, Allie, so much with you, and I actually kind of played a lot of those same, lovely games with doing my paraphrasing. As Friar Lawrence, he has such beautiful poetic language anyway, and then it's also kind of juxtaposed with when he gets intense. Even then, he's still very poetic, and trying to keep the rhyme in there and all that was great. I love this play so much. I've probably been in 12 different productions now. I met my wife in it. She was Juliet. I was Paris. Didn't work out exactly the way I intended. But, I've also played Paris that lived, which was interesting. I'll talk about that later. But excuse me, I'm recovering from the flu this week. But it to me has always been it's the gateway play, right? It's the gateway play because it is the most easily translatable emotions of Shakespeare to kids, right? They understand these feelings because they are in the play. I think that's another reason why Midsummer is similar, because it's younger people having big feelings. And, when you look at the state of our current high school environment, I just remember when I was in high school having these crises that were so enormous that everything seems so overwhelming. And when you look back at them now, you're like, why was I ever that concerned about that thing? But when you look at them in the world of the play, I'm actually amazed that Shakespeare was able to dial in to the youth culture as effectively as he did, because these kids understand violence today. They know that there's threat of death when they're in school. It's not that different. They have gigantic anger, gigantic love. And, so I don't know if you guys know, but the Broadway production just closed yesterday with Rachel Ziegler and Kit Connor, who I love. I didn't get a chance to see it, but it's amazing that it was one of the hottest tickets on Broadway. And Jim, how many years, what year was it written in?
1996, maybe?
Okay. So, how amazing is it that it's still the top selling show on Broadway? And just, the connection of all of the people on this screen coming together, talking about how much this play has impacted them and their lives, their friendships, their marriages, and knowing how popular it still is a really big part of why we're trying to keep something going with the American Globe Center and having the Globe. And, for kids to be able to come to Connecticut and see Romeo and Juliet on the Globe stage in a way that they can viscerally get into it and understand it, because we've done the work, Constance, we've done the work, Allie, to know what we're saying. Like, it's going to be game changing, and it's just so exciting. And I'm thank you guys all for being here. It's just a lovely way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
If I could pick up on what Tom was just saying too, I actually just directed this show last semester with teenagers.
Yes.
And I was really excited to do the play with teenage actors. I knew that I had like a dedicated group. So I sort of went in knowing like, or expecting like, this is going to be exciting to do with like an actual teenage Juliet, an actual, you know, teenage Mercutio. It'll be really interesting to do. And of course it was, and it was very exciting. And every day there was like, you know, the kids would always, you know, there'd be these big light bulb moments of like, you know, there was this constant refrain of like, you can do that. They kept saying like, we can do that. Like, you know, because it was a pretty physical production, and it was, you know, but I just wanted to share with everybody here who clearly loves the play and loves the work. The thing that was that I wasn't prepared for was that we performed at our school, but then we performed as part of a festival where we invited. It's modeled actually on the Shakespeare and Company Fall Festival, Alley. So we had 4 different high schools come with 4 different Shakespeare plays. That is the thing that I was not prepared for, because I mean, I think some of us who worked at Blackfriars experienced this, but I had never seen it to this extent. We were the first show to perform in the festival. So you're sitting out there with an audience comprised mostly of other young actors who have their own Shakespeare play, but none of them knew what happened. None of them knew how it ended. And of course, I had this young woman playing Mercutio who was just so electric, and the audience completely fell in love with her. And when she got stabbed, I mean, Jim, I have to imagine it's like, I mean, Sarah and I, the other directors, we were all looking at each other in the audience because kids in the crowd were standing up and screaming. It's not hyperbole when I say they were screaming. They were like, no, like 80s action film yelling at the dolly shot, like screaming, no, you know, all of this hoopla in the audience, people throwing stuff. We were like, I mean, I'm in goosebumps just like remembering what it was like. Because I was like, oh, some of y'all didn't do the reading and it shows, but I'm really glad that you didn't do your homework, because this is so much more exciting. I had this great kid playing Tybalt, who was a really gifted combatant, and by his own admission, not the strongest actor, but he was like, I'm here to do my job. And when he came back out, they're like, here comes the furious Tybalt back again. And they booed his ass. They just booed and booed. And you could see, and I was so proud of him because he stayed right in it. You know, he totally stayed in character. He did his fight with Romeo. He died. He came off stage, and the kids told me he was dating the girl playing the prince at the time. She was like, oh, we came off. And he goes, that was exhilarating. You know, Juliet was picking up the dagger, and people were like, you know, you could hear them whispering. You know, it's all I could think of was like in Shakespeare in Love. You know, when she comes to life and the whole theater gasps. I mean, that's what it was like. So Tom, you know, I've seen the evidence. You know, it's not hyperbole. It's not a pipe dream. I've seen it happen. And we did paraphrase.
And I have directed at Shake and Co. Fall Festival 4 times, not Romeo and Juliet, but there is something that I think Romeo and Juliet is interesting too, because sometimes it's like, oh, why do they always just do it in 9th grade and everything? But it is one thing where there's more that they see every day present than a lot of shows. There's actually 2 mothers, which is rare. Let's, you know, that they can talk about, or at least when they're watching and they've never seen it before, it's like, yeah, there's absentee mom. Oh yeah, there's dad that hits or is angry, you know. Oh, and there's just more of what they see. There's friends hanging out in the street when maybe they shouldn't be, but then, you know, there's the clergy, there's the grandma. I mean, I think of the nurse as more of a grandma, someone who's been there for her raising, but did not actually birth her. And so I think if you can harness that kind of feeling that you were able to create in the show with teenagers is the reason that the show sometimes seems to get picked, even though you might pick a 12th Night as a superior play maybe for the age group. There's not as many identifying characters. The father is, the brother is dead, so I do think that there is more for them to even paraphrase from, because there's a lot in their domestic lives. Oh, I think Ben just saw a baby.
And I think both of those things are so true that you guys were touching on, right? That Romeo and Juliet is the perfect entree to Shakespeare for particularly young audiences, but really for anyone who doesn't have a familiarity, with the canon. And also that pretty much any of his plays are best served with folks who like really dig into, the phrasing and how the characters relate in the modern era. Just like you were saying, Allie, about the different family dynamics and things like that. There's so much you can play on with the Capulets versus the Montagues and what that, could mirror in our modern lives as well. And so I think that, for young people especially, but for anyone, it's just the themes are so universal, big emotions, there's something for everyone. There's humor, there's fighting. And Jim, you were asking earlier if anyone, had any questions on it. I would love to hear more from you, Ben, about the fight choreography and what that process is like for you with this piece. And if there's anything that like stands out in productions that you've done that you can share with us.
Before he even answers that, let me tell you, Benjamin Kearns choreographed the Paris and Romeo fight in the dark for the production that I was in. And there is one thing for it to work at the ASC in the Blackfriars. It's another for it to work in an auditorium or a cafeteria that we makeshift to be as close to the ASC staging conditions. And when I tell you, it did not matter where we were, you could hear a pin drop because everyone leaned in and it was as if it clicked for them all immediately. They're in the dark. They can't see each other. They're fighting. They're actually fighting in the dark. And that's that. I'll let Ben pick up, but that was something that a huge takeaway of mine, that I have not ever seen another Romeo and Juliet where that choreography comes close to what we did, what Benjamin did.
That's so cool. I got chills.
Yeah. Oh, he had excellent combatants, and so they did the job. But in terms of the story and making sure those given circumstances were as alive in the choreography as the choreography itself is what made it the next level, if that makes sense. So
That's amazing. I have a real soft spot for fight choreography. That's one of my favorite things. So yeah, awesome. Yes. Thank you, Constance.
It's a funny thing in that production too, Constance, because it's like those two guys were so skilled that we put that thing together in like 10 minutes, and it took us hours to do 1-1 and 3-1. And it's the Paris Romeo fight that anyone remembers. That's the one. I don't know. I've done a bunch of different things. The last time I did it for Jim, somebody fought with a golf club. Somebody fought with a knife. When I just did it, we just did all knives because of the size of the stage that we were on. We just simply didn't have room to do anything other than that. I don't know. I could talk a lot about it, but I won't. I'll just say two quick things. One is I didn't read this play in high school. It was not assigned. We did Caesar and Mackers. So my first introduction was my first semester of undergrad. I got cast as Paris Tom. And so I was standing in the wings, and like we had only rehearsed, we would just be called for our own scenes. So then I had done my scene with a terrifying Capulet. And then we were doing a run of Act 1. And I didn't do the reading. So I didn't know it was going to, so I'm just waiting in the wing ready to make my entrance into 1-2. And like when Tybalt came out, and I've said this in a million talkbacks, Allison and Sarah have heard me say this a million times. I was standing in the wings and Tybalt came out and he was like, turn thee Benvolio, look upon thy death. I hate the word as I hate hell, all Montague. I was like, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen. and what happens next. And then the stage like erupted into violence, and I was like, I am like exactly where I want to be right now. It made a huge impression. But I guess if I was going to mention one thing, when I worked with Jim in 2013, Jim let me try this thing where we outfitted Tybalt's left hand with a leather glove with a claw, sort of like Lady Deathstrike. If anybody
I
knows the X-Men.
remember.
So it was almost like we sort of taking Prince of Cats and trying to like run that down. So he fought with a rapier in his right hand, but could slash with the other hand. It was really exciting to do. And it sort of came because we had a really tall Tybalt, one that didn't strike me as sort of cat-like. So I was like, well, what can we do to make it cat-like? And then he was into it, Jim was into it, and we had a designer who just crushed this glove, just made it so terrific. And it lasted through the whole thing. And then, and the thing that we got really excited about in rehearsals was when Tybalt was killed, it was because he attacked Romeo with the glove. Romeo was able to block it and turn the glove back into Tybalt's body several times. So when Lady Capulet said some 20 of them fought in this black strife, it looked like 20 people had stabbed him because there were 4 claws going into him every single time. So for me as a choreographer and as a text nerd, I thought that was really fun. So I guess
for those of you who know him, that Tybalt was John Harrell. And I gotta say this about fight choreography, Laura, as a director, a director's relationship with a fight director, with a dance choreographer, everybody does that stuff a little differently. And in my opinion, a director and a fight director have to be like this. So many directors just say, go do the fights and then come back. And fights are often not integrated into the rest of the story that's being told. They feel like standalone pieces. And Benjamin Kearns is one of my favorite fight directors ever in the history of the world, because he as an actor, he understands what it's like to be in a fight. As a fight director, he knows that we've got to be telling a grounded story, a story that is interwoven. And specifically, I've directed this play a whole bunch, and trying to describe to directors, no, Romeo and Paris have to fight in the dark. He doesn't know who he's killed until he shines a lantern or a torch on that face. It's right there in the text that it's got to be in the dark. And trying to get a choreographer to do that and to do that well is hard as all get out. But Benjamin Kearns is the bomb.
And I will say, Ben's that relationship, just because I got to be the nurse, it's that teamwork, because there's more than just the fights directly that are fight choreography in that play. And there's a lot of those moments. And as being a nurse so many times, I've been at Shake & Co. I was like accidentally flipped into a fountain during the first Mercutio scene. I was, Ben, we actually did some choreography where he was like under me. I mean, there's always been a significant amount of, or if there is, was in a play where Juliet was actually, really, really manhandled in, her scene with her father. So those pieces are really integral as well. So then when the fighting is like what Ben was saying about, they scream because how can Mercutio be dead? There's been a lot of attitude adjustment, or at least choices that I feel have to be made that start out very physical, like 1-1, where the attitude of that fight does somehow tell me how the production is going to be. If they're throwing loaves of bread and doing a lot of hijinks, this is going to be a different Romeo and Juliet than when, something happens and it's just knives because I'm intimate. I know there's a roller coaster that I'm on, but every roller coaster is different. And those moments really define then how endowed you are to the violence that comes next in terms of learning and even reading it.
I want to make sure
we're really good at doing that together. And yes, I've been manhandled. I could write a little paper on the ways I was manhandled in different fun, legitimate ways as the nurse.
I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time with you folks that know we're building a globe, but don't necessarily know where we are in that process. Tom, could you bring us up to date on where we are in what we're trying to do? You are muted, sir.
Sorry about that. I said thank you. So yes, folks, we are. It's been a really interesting and fascinating journey. Laura is here with me in Stratford, so she knows where most of it kicked off. But the good news is that we have probably more positive momentum towards the project than we ever have before. And recently, we met with Senator Kathy Austin, who is the state senator for Connecticut in charge of appropriations. And we sat down with her and we described what we wanted to build. And for anybody that's not 100% dialed in on this, it's the recreation of the 1614 Globe. And then it's also a modern performing arts center where we'll be able to do other shows that are non-Shakespeare, but we're going to do them with the SSE, ASC, Jim Warren attack so that we're always connected. We're always knowing what we're saying or singing or dancing. And we're bringing that to a thrust-based stage kind of setup where the audience will always be a part of the experience. When we described this to Senator Austin and told her what the economic impact could look like, what the educational impact could look like, she was very excited about that idea. And she said, you know, what can I do to help? What do you guys need? How much money do you need to get started? And we told her a number and she said, I'm going to start working on it. So she went back to the state and she's got a $3 million bill that they're getting in place for us. You said more, right, Ben?
that 3 million is just the start off.
3 million is the start. And for anyone that's kind of catching up on the story a little bit, you know, Stratford, we pushed really hard for very long, and the mayor said that the project is too big, which in a way is a compliment, right? They feel like we're going to be too successful for Stratford to hold on to us. So after that happened, that was February of this past year, about a year to the date, actually, right, Jim? Maybe a couple more days.
Yeah.
We went to the state, and the state gave us a lot of different options, but one name that kept coming up over and over again was Norwich, Connecticut. So for anybody that's not familiar with the area, Norwich is on the eastern side of the state, which is over by Mystic, Connecticut, and New London, some of the more touristy areas. But it's also very close to, it's the home of actually the Mohegan Sun Casino and the Foxwoods Casino that are up there as well. And they bring about 20 million people into Norwich annually right now. So adding a cultural and an education component to that city could be really a massive boon for the community and for the region. The beauty of what we're trying to accomplish there is that Norwich was at one point, they called it the Rose of New England. It was one of the richest cities in the United States, believe it or not. It had a lot of lumber yards, a lot of textile mills. And when those industries kind of faded out, the city kind of died a little bit. And now they are really excited to rebuild. And they're working through a company called NCDC. And the gentleman that runs that, his name is Kevin Brown. And when we went to the state and said, who should we be talking to across the state to help us with this, unanimously, they're like, you got to talk to Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown wants to rebuild in Norwich. He's got great ideas. And we actually were able to sort of laser in on the downtown waterfront of Norwich, which actually sits on the Thames River. They call it the Thames, but it is the Thames. There are 3 rivers that come together right there. Beautiful little downtown space. I can pull it up for you guys and show you what it looks like. And we could become the genesis of a completely new experience for what Norwich could become. So right now, that's really where we're focused. we do have a lot of other communities that have reached out to us and are interested in learning more about what we're doing. And we have meetings with all of those groups. But Norwich is really in the lead. And then right behind them would be Hartford, which is the capital of Connecticut. Hartford kind of came a little bit later in the game. One of our working group members is a gentleman named David Sterling Brown, who writes a brilliant book on race and Shakespeare. He teaches at Trinity College, which is in Hartford, and he was the one that kind of opened some of the doors for us in Hartford as well. But the best news of all is just that there are people in the state government, there are people in these municipal governments who understand what we're trying to create here and see that there's immense possibility in what we're going to build. You guys have all been a piece of the Blackfriars story at some point or other, or the growth into the Blackfriars story. And, those of you that have spent time in Stanton, you understand what something like this can do to a community. It becomes the heart. I mean, Mary, you can probably speak to that better than anybody in a lot of ways. So the doubling of tourism, the economic growth, the new businesses that can come about, Benjamin, I think you could speak to that a little bit, right? I mean, I'm sure, it helps to see new businesses booming in the area, new restaurants being created, new endeavors that can come to life. And we're hoping to bring all of that energy, again, on the Jim Warren bus to Norwich.
Part of what I say to folks who haven't been to Norwich is, but have been involved in the Blackfriars. Imagine if the city of Stanton 25 to 30 years ago was on the water, and part of what we were able to do in Stanton, the way that I always talk about it, there was a wave of redevelopment that had already started, and we came in and we helped turn that wave into a tsunami. And that was just with 300 seats, in the Blackfriars. So imagine a town that is in need of a lot of economic turnaround, and that economic turnaround has already started. And us bringing in the Globe that will seat and stand 900, an indoor thrust stage that'll be another 900, plus a black box. We're talking about a whole lot of what we did in Stanton as kind of the starter kit for what this could be, what this colossus could be for economic development and education and tourism.
Plus, you're closer to population centers. There's a lot more density of population. I mean, the reason I did the McDermott Visiting Artist was we were so far away from the places where professional actors worked. And so it's not, but you've got density of audience there.
Absolutely, and especially from an educational perspective, Mary, the number of colleges, high schools, and universities around Norwich, or just in Connecticut in general, versus around Stanton it's 10-fold. So we know that we have a lot of audience to tap, but we still do. The nice thing about being not right outside of New York City and not right outside of Boston is that we still can create this sense of destination. And right. People can come for multiple days, and it's a vacation spot. The beauty of Connecticut, it's really kind of wild. And I moved here in 2017 because I had done a production of Romeo and Juliet at the old Stratford Theater. Shocking, Romeo and Juliet, right? But we moved here not realizing that it's got beaches, it's got hiking, it's got forests, it's got culture. It's So bringing folks into Connecticut right now, it's kind of it's a drive-through state, really, right? People are in New York or they're going to Boston, and they skip all these amazing things that happen in Connecticut. And this would kind of create an anchor for Shakespeare in the United States right here in Connecticut.
And how far, Tom, is it from New York City
to Norwich?
Well, Stratford is only about an hour and 15 minutes from New York City. But unfortunately, our mayor is.
But I mean, Norwich is, you don't have to drive 5 hours or something.
2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah, it's
that's
about
perfect.
2 hours from both.
People will do that like it's like destination weekend.
There's
to
not
me.
a train to Norwich, though. There is one to Stratford and to Fairfield County. The only thing with Norwich is there's no train service, but they're both on the water.
I'm
And how
probably
far did you say Stratford was from Norwich? How far is Stratford from Norwich?
About an hour.
15.
Yeah, hour 10.
Oh, but you can get to New London via train, Allison, and then it's
That was just my curiosity. Is
Yeah.
if
And
you
it's
were
also-
taking a train.
Yeah, it's fairly close to Providence too, so you can get to those cities via Amtrak, and it's not far from. I think it's only about a half an hour from Providence to Norwich.
We don't necessarily think that the casino crowd will all be Shakespeare and theater lovers, but the fact that the casinos are thriving so much is proof that people can get there, that people
Yes.
find a way to be there.
They're coming from somewhere.
Well, there
People
are
that I know that live in Western Massachusetts, right by the MGM casino that's there, and they go to the casino in Connecticut because they like it better, So it's a lot of traffic.
There are literally hundreds of buses a week out of Port Authority that go from New York City to the casinos. So we think people will be able to hop that ride pretty easily. Just real quick
That's true.
show you guys sort of what this looks like. Okay. So just tell me when that pops up. There we go. So this is the deck that our current architectural partners put together for us. So what you're seeing here is that the Thames River flows into the town, and then it hits the Yantic River and the Shetucket River coming down this way. They do call this the Thames, but we'll call it whatever we want. This is the current footprint of what we're looking at from above. So this building is called 101 Water Street. We want to acquire that. We want to acquire this weird octagonal building over here and these two buildings. And essentially, this street that currently runs down along the waterfront is going away anyway. So the idea is this would become the driveway into the American Globe Center instead. Real challenge here is that, it does sit within a 100-year floodplain. So what they're suggesting we do is elevate the entire thing, which is great because as actors, I think it'd be nice to know that we can get from one building into the Globe without having to walk in the rain. So they're going to elevate the site and essentially create a river wall, which gives us back all this reclaimed land above the flood zone. And then there will be steps down. Now, these are all very rough ideas, guys, so don't get too married to any of it. But essentially, the Performing Arts Center would have some heavy timber elements that would evoke the Globe, but still be a very modern building. So these are just some of the ideas that they were kind of throwing our direction. Just to kind of connect everything together, make it feel organic, green space, but also have the Globe stand as sort of the jewel of the piece. You'll understand more when you see another rendering in just a second, but this is kind of the way things would be laid out with the Globe on the promontory here, and then the Performing Arts Center will be several levels to get up to that plane. This would be kind of a heavy timber, just a colonnade down through to get to the riverfront. So you can kind of see it from this angle. This is an amphitheater that we toyed with. Probably won't be in the final design, but they were thinking about building something down there anyway, so we just included it in the initial drawings. And then I'll show you. So just to give you a sense, these are people here. So this is like a 4-story high, open air, but timber. It gives some cover from the sun, some cover from the elements. It's open in certain spaces and not in others, just to kind of give some coverage over this little walkway. This would be the view up from the river level to the Globe. And then let me just pull up these other images because these are our more recent renderings. So this would be the view of the Globe into the Performing Arts Center. So this is facing from the city down towards the river. And then this one would be the opposite angle. And this is actually from up in the city hill looking down over the Globe, the Performing Arts Center. So, we're at a point right now where we're just trying to raise as much. Oh, thank you, Constance. We're trying to get the funds raised, and it's a challenge. Absolutely. I mean, we all have been in the startup world of theater for most of our lives in one way or another. And, you know, it's all about asking for donors to help us. We're trying to do this a little bit differently and model the AGC to be a really smart and thoughtful and equitable, you know, environment nonprofit, but give it the for-profit sense of, hey, what if people invested in this instead of just gave money, right? So we actually built our construction model to include an investment component where people can actually earn some money back on what it's a long-term, you know, it's very much an impact investment. It's not going to make people their fortunes, but it does allow people to get something more than a tax write-off as part of contributing to be a part of the opening partnership in the AGC. So, you know, we have that component, and then we're going to take advantage of some of the new market tax credits that Norwich enables us to get into. And, you know, it's a $100 million project at the end of the day to build out. So, you know, what our call to all of our friends are, like you guys, is, you know, we all know people who know people who know people. And, you know, Jim loves to have virtual coffees with as many people as he can on a daily basis. But we just want to connect. You know, we've spent a lot of time connecting with different municipalities, and they're all sort of like, this is great, come here. Yeah. And then they say, well, how much money do you have in your pockets today? And that's what we're working on right now. So, you know, our first, you know, jump out of the gate right now is we want to come away with something between 10 and $15 million so that we can show these municipalities that we're a force to be reckoned with. We're not a pipe dream. We're not just something that might happen down the road. And, you know, we know that the money is out there because there are other projects happening just in Connecticut. You know, David Geffen just gave $150 million to Yale, you know, and, you know, there are a lot of people that went to Yale who are all very, you know, well off and, you know, have done a great job in their careers, you know. So we want to tap our network and just get in touch with people and say, hey, you know, I mean, there are ways that everybody can participate, right? You guys are all here today, and that in itself is participation. You know, Benjamin has created this amazing network on Stageable where, you know, you can subscribe and support us. So basically it's like for $25 a month, you get to do things like this for free, where we all get together and chat about different plays. You'll get access to other backstage content that we have. And it's a not heavy on the pocketbook way to be a part of what we're building. And essentially it kind of makes you a mini shareholder long-term in what we're building. But if you do know people that have access to those 5s and 6s and 7s billions of dollars, you know, we want to talk to those people, and you know, we're talking to different brands. We're talking, you know, we want to be open to anybody that wants to come along for the ride that believes in this project. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. So that's kind of where we are. Jim, did I miss anything important?
No, I think that's good. And y'all are friends and can be ambassadors for us. So just talking it up and sending people to AmericanGlobeCenter.com to find out more about us, sending them to Stageable.com. That idea of $25 a month is an easy way that folks are jumping on board who don't have a lot of money, but say, hey, I support what you're doing. So that's an easy thing for us all to try to get folks to do. But the idea of taking some of the stuff that y'all experienced at the SSE, at the ASC, at the Blackfriars, and thinking about that as proof of concept for something that can be bigger than that, but may and take us into 2025 and beyond, something that's even smarter. All of the things that we learned during that time there, we can make something even better, and continue to take the staging ideas and explode them and expose more folks to what we've done. And we'll have a touring component too. What part of the way that we're planning this is that we'll have a touring component hitting the road while we are in construction with the Globe, so that we are using that idea that y'all who are on the road, I mean, it's a roving commercial. and it makes a lot of money sense. So this is the second time we've done a conversation that is part of our monthly conversations that we do for stageable members, and we're playing with this idea of doing a different play each time. So one of the thoughts was Romeo and Juliet for Valentine's Day and Julius Caesar for the Ides of March. So that's what we're looking at for next month, as we continue to connect with folks.
Bring the glove, Benjamin. They'll be stabbing next month too.
So can I just speak really quick to like my hope is that if we could get a couple of hundred people to subscribe to the American Globe Center, all of a sudden every month they've got some cash flow, and all of a sudden, you know, they've got the ability to focus in a more intense way on putting their full effort toward it. And so if we can start to build community, I mean, Jim, you and I talked in that podcast we did forever ago, you know, when I was first setting up my equipment, and it was like the snowball, you know, it's like, we've just got to get it rolling, and it can start small, but if we're getting out there and we're putting the message out into, you know, the different communities that of people who might be interested in this, then it can start to really pick up steam. And as the grassroots support is coming in at the individual level, it gives more and more power, I think, to the argument when you're meeting with with investors and with potential donors and saying, like, look, the community is growing. It's already been going, you know, since we began, and it's only getting stronger. And I think that's really, for me, what I want to see happen next, is just to see you guys having that kind of community building at the grassroots, to be able to show those municipalities and those, you know, higher ups that there's traction here, things are moving.
And Ben, how would you like us best to facilitate or just assist in that? Like, obviously my parents are not the millionaire people that you're talking about, but these are people that have always would support Jim Warren and put their money that they have for something like this where their mouth is. They've believed in Squinibus. They put the money they had towards it. You know, I mean, so but I have other people that I know, if I said this was Jim and this, you know, and Mary and Tom, like, there would be somebody I would love to tell. What would you like me? Do I send them somewhere, or do you want them and you want to send them help?
No, so stageable.com/American-Globe-Center.
It's in the chat right now too.
STAGE.
Tom actually put it in the chat already, Allie.
Thank you very much.
And I
know I'm old school. I pick
No,
up a pen when I should
right.
just look in a window.
I say we auction off the baby. That's a really cute baby.
That is a lovely idea. And
I'm so excited, and I'm really excited to say that you learned from the touring, and you'll be doing things while this is being built, because I very much believe that you have to see it to believe it. Mm-hmm. And you can describe it, but words fail. So yeah, I'm thrilled about that. And you guys know, you know, you've talented people like these. You can do it in a gym. You can do it in a church sanctuary. You can do it in a stockyard.
You can do it with the lights off.
Yes. No. Oh, no. Poor Constance, the lights went off in one of her productions, and everybody put their cell phones out to light the stage.
I was going to say to Tom and Jim, I'm a member of the Connecticut Film and Television Alliance, and they are doing a lot in the state right now as well. And there's going to be a lot of crossover there with the creatives, and I know a lot of the folks there. So I'm going to try and get word to as many of those people as I can, including some of the board members and stuff, to really plug the Stageable thing to get some consistent donations, as well as, you know, see if I can find any big pockets. I'll shake that tree a little bit.
And Laura, if you've got Tom's email address, if there's a way for us to meet with the board members to just pitch them the idea, let them know the scope of the project, we'd be happy to do that.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because they're all about, you know, just like you guys are doing with Shakespeare, trying to bring more film and television opportunities to Connecticut, because they're sick of seeing projects in Boston and New York. And, you know, they see what the potential is here and how much talent is here. So it's like the parallels are just immense. And I've been spending a lot of time with those folks lately. So I will try and get a meeting with some folks and let you know.
That'd be awesome, Laura. Thank you. That's what we love for you guys to do. You know, create connection. You're all amazing communicators. You're all people who love what we do. And, you know, the beauty of gathering like this is that it helps us re-energize, because, you know, for Jason and Jim and Benjamin and I, you know, we spend a lot of time. We meet every week. We meet several times a week. And, you know, we're always just, what do we got to do? We got to drive. And seeing how much you guys have been touched by our community in the past, being able to create a permanent home for that community and growing it across the country is just such an awesome and exciting idea. And we want all of you to be a part of it. So thank you.
Benjamin Kearns, that baby that would probably, you know, be great for auctioning off. What's that baby's name?
Julius.
Yeah, see? Perfect Shakespeare name.
We'll have to come to the March one then, I guess, huh?
Yeah. I'd be happy.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And for those of you that might think it's blasphemy, or maybe you would actually like to do it as you move into working on plays with other folks. Since I left the ASC, I changed the name of that exercise, and don't call it paraphrasing. I call it word swapping, because that connected better, because some folks wouldn't read the directions and they would paraphrase rather than word swap.
Word for word paraphrase.
Yeah. So
actually, might be
I saw in the chat, Constance, but I said that I'm never going to hear or read the word tut again and not think brah. So I love it. I love it.
Maybe we'll put a little section somewhere on stage where people can upload their word swaps, and we can see each other's work.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, y'all. And we'll keep staying in touch with you. You keep staying in touch with us, please.
Thank you so much for this, guys.
You guys
I'm
are
really
doing
excited
amazing
for you.
stuff.
Way to meet all you people. This was fun.
Wonderful
Thanks, guys.
show.
It was amazing. I
all.
cannot wait to tell everybody I know about it. And I miss all these faces dearly. Sincerely, I've loved every minute of hearing everybody. So thank you for this. It's meant a lot to me.
Bye, all. Thanks.
We're gonna build a globe for all of y'all.
Big love.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Nobody would have known that you are under the weather. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad. Show must go on. There you go.
And I